Today I'm going to review for you Monstrilio. This is by Gerardo Samano Cordova. This is a book I've been looking forward to getting to for a very long time. It was up for a lot of awards. I think it may have won some, if I remember correctly. And it was an intriguing premise because I love when monsters are used to explore topics, which is really a lot of monster movies when you get down to it. There's something there beyond just the monster attacking or whatever. This book is such an interesting look at grief and what it means to be human, what it means to follow your nature versus trying to strive against it. There's a lot of interesting stuff explored here, so let's get into it a little further. This book is told from 4 different perspectives. The first perspective is of Magos, the mother of Santiago, who was born with 1 lung and wasn't given very long to live at the start. Now, this next bit could be considered a spoiler, but is literally the very first thing on the blurb, so kind of isn't. But what Magos does in her grief after Santiago passes is considered, well, would be considered by a lot of people, including her husband, Joseph, monstrous. She opens up Santiago, she takes a piece of his lung, and she puts it in a jar to keep. Joseph is completely lost in his grief. Magos just doesn't seem to be able to feel the grief in the way that she wants. So she moves back to Mexico to be with her mother. And there, her mother's caretaker tells her a little bit of folklore, local folklore, about how someone fed a part of someone and they basically came back to life. So that's what Magos, in her desperation, does. What she creates is something very different than Santiago at first. The first 2 sections of this book that are from the perspective of Magos and then Lena, who is a friend of both Joseph and Magos and has feelings for Magos as well. These are really interesting sections because they're told from very interesting points of view. I thought both Lena and Magos had very interesting brains that I enjoyed being in as they struggle of what to do with Monstrilio, this creature that is created from this desperate act of Magos's in the beginning. And Monstrilio changes and evolves. And the book is all about how to react to that and the best way of doing it. Is Monstrilio Santiago? Is he not? Is he his own person? Is he a person? You know, there's all these questions that get churned up. The early parts of this book I thought were fantastic. Now we get to a 3rd section with Joseph, and this was the one that really kind of almost lost me a little bit. I just wasn't as involved in it. I didn't think Joseph was as interesting of a character. In retrospect, when you look at the book as a whole, it is interesting to get his perspective on things. I'm glad that this section is there, but it definitely for me was just sort of the weakest part of the book because Joseph as a character is very kind of passive and just sort of goes along with the flow and he's kind of reactive. So he wasn't as interesting as Lena and Magos. But in the 4th section of this book, we get things from M's perspective, from Monstrilio's perspective, and I loved the ending. I could have read a whole book, honestly, just from his perspective and his way of seeing things and what he wanted. And really, this last section is what really made this book for me. I really love the way that this ended up. I liked the journey getting there. I would probably give this 4 stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, somewhere in the line of that. I think that it's a really interesting usage of the monster to talk about humanity. And I always love stories like that.